Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to show you how easy it is to go outside and find materials to weave with. So I'm going to show you my backyard and we're going to go find some stuff.
My backyard, it's just rained, so there's some wet materials, but we can leave them out to dry. So basically we're just looking for anything long and thin. So this would count as something long and thin, especially since it's kind of bendable. So we're gonna put that in the bag. Also, pine needles are long and thin and bendable, but not too fragile. So something like this, a stick, might not be easy to weave with because it's not bendable and it breaks when you try to bend it. So we want to look for things that are more flexible. That's going to help us go over and under. So this would probably be a good example. It's just kind of like a weed. And especially when that dries out, it will be bendable. I'm going to put that in. Let's see. This looks like something good. Put that in. That's probably not bendable enough. I like these long pieces of grass. I'm going to take those. Take plenty of those. You want to kind of get a lot because you are going to find that the more you have, the bigger your weaving is going to be. We want to get some variety because that's going to make your art look more interesting when you have more variety in the color and texture and shapes that are in your weave. So that's something different. I'm going to take that. So we're just going to keep on getting things from the yard. I'm going to look under this table because it's going to be, I can find things that are dry because it's just rained and the table blocked it from getting wet. So there's plenty of stuff in here. It's nice and dry. Long, skinny, flexible things in nature. All right, I'm gonna finish collecting and then I'm gonna continue showing you how to use these materials while you're weaving. So I've already done a few rows on this and you can see that I used yarn first and then I used a couple of the straw pieces that I collected and now I'm using a shoelace. Really anything that you find in your house that is long and thin and flexible is something that you can use or add to your weaving. And the more variety that you have in the materials, the more interesting your tapestry will look. Now I'm adding a long piece of thick grass to the top. So I'm doing kind of a big section of natural materials from the yard. And I'm starting with grass because it's bright green. And I want to add variety. So maybe next I'll add something that's a different texture or a different color than the green grass. Okay, choosing a collection of pine needles. And I want to kind of snip off the end. Now I'm using a thicker piece of straw. Some more straw, so I'm kind of creating a straw section. So if you zoom in, you can tell that I'm making sure that each row of my weaving is opposite from the row that I did before. So if my first row is over, under the white string, I want to make sure that my next row is under, over. So first over, under, then under, over. And that's what holds it together and makes it strong. So I'm making sure to use a variety of textures and colors and values. So values is the lightness or darkness of something. So I started with a light colored straw and now I added some darker sticks. And I'm going to repeat the green again to kind of create a pattern. Now I'm just going to add some white yarn because that is the lightest value. And next to those dark sticks and green grass, that's going to look really nice and contrast against those materials. Now I'm going to add a blue yarn. It's unexpected, unrelated to what I did, so I created some variety from what I'd been doing before. Unexpected surprises are always good in pieces of artwork. They make things look more interesting and add contrast. So I'm going to create another section of natural materials from the yard. Since the grass is so thin, you have to go back and forth for lots of rows for it to show up in your work. If the section is too thin, it's hard to see when you squish all of your rows together into a fabric. It can take a lot of time and patience to finish an entire tapestry. But the results can be very rewarding. All right, I feel like that is just about enough. We want to kind of squish them together, which I'll show you in a moment when we're finished. So the last thing I'm doing is weaving through this pretty thick stick that I found in the yard. That's going to give me something to tie the handle to. So I want to squish it together into the middle to have plenty of space on either side to finish the loom. Now there's a video about how to finish a loom in my channel that might be a bit clearer than this video. I was working with the large stick, so it's a little tricky, but you want to cut little strips and tie pairs together with double or triple knots with a separate string. I like to use a string that's the same color as the background that I chose because that unifies the fringe that you end up with. But if you want to have two different colors of fringe going on, you can use a different color. And using a different color might be easiest the first time you do it because it will be easier for you to see. Sometimes you have an uneven amount of strings going vertically, and in that case you want to tie that last string to the last pair that you made. So you might have 3 strings together instead of 2. Okay, that side is secure, so now we're flipping it around and pairing up the other side. These knots that you're tying are what are going to hold your weave together so that it doesn't just slide right off those vertical strings once you've cut it off the loom. Okay, so now that that's secure, I'm going to go right in the middle of the back and just snip it off. Then I've got to carefully pull each white string out of the slot that I cut. Once I've done that, the weave is free of the loom. So the last thing that I need to do is I'm going to just tie a few more knots in here just to make double, triple sure that everything is secure and not going to slide off. Because we worked really hard on this and we don't want it to fall apart. We want it to be nice and strong. Once I feel like those knots are super strong, then I'm going to trim the edges off of the yarn so that it looks nice and we don't have those distracting white strings hanging down. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a handle onto the top so that it can be hung. So I'm tying one loop to one side and one loop to the other side so that I've got a long string that's tied on both ends. And that makes it hangable.